If you're like me, when you first heard of Dune Awakening, it sounded like it was going to be another big IP cash grab, especially when you saw the MMO tag listed next to it. In a post-lockdown world where producers ruin everything, this to me seemed like something of no substance, wearing the skin of the super successful multimedia Dune franchise. But after playing the beta and currently getting into its full launch, I have to say this game has got my interest. As someone who hasn't burned out on survival games, I think it actually provides a pretty cool survival setup that genuinely has me wanting to play more. So if you give me a few minutes, let me tell you why I think Dune Awakening has got something good here. First off, one of my first Steam purchases was Rust back when I was first transitioning from a console player to a PC gamer. Why does this matter? Well, as one of my oldest games in my library, it has never been opened past the start menu. This is because of PvP anxiety. At the root of it, I'm utter shite at shooters and PvP. I don't have those fast reaction times or hand-eye coordination to pull off the skill to excel at these games, and sitting in a corner door camping for hours just doesn't seem like fun. I know what you're saying. Why does this matter? Dune Awakening isn't what Rust is. Yes, it does have PvP. Yes, there are bases and resource gathering in a survival sandbox, but these PvP zones are area specific, and to my knowledge, for main progression, you can skate by not having to deal with anyone else but yourself for quite a long while, if not all the game if you want. In general areas, you can only target hostile mobs and NPCs. Mark and I spent a lot of our time grinding and chatting on proximity chat to anyone whom passed by our dungeons or camps we were looting. Don't worry, we were instigators for proximity chat. It's not that common for people to come up to you and say hi, but we thought it would make for some good footage, and it generally only resulted in nice interactions, and even helpful ones with tips in some scenarios. I've heard whispers of some deep desert endgame, but we didn't make it that far to see this. But where we are, it is chill where we wanted it, and tense where it needed to be to have us hooked. Basically, any PvP related stress shouldn't be a thing since you don't have to interact with it. So let's talk about its survival. From a baseline, it's what you would expect. You farm resources, whether it be mining, scavenging, or straight up robbing off of mobs' corpses, and you build a base as an outpost to store loot, enhance loot, and brave the environment. Hunger Sim has been replaced by the hydration system that plays in tandem with the heat system. You need to constantly have access to water reserves or you'll be in a tough spot, and the heat amplifies its use. As you progress, lore-specific items can be acquired that make this much easier. If you recall the suits in the Villeneuve films, they work to recycle every ounce of liquid used to be used once again. These suits pop up quite quickly after tutorial and are optional gear in comparison to something that may be more tactical and armor oriented. Another aspect touched on in the second film is not wasting the dead's water resources, meaning when someone is defeated, they're typically juiced to pull every ounce of liquid, as water is the key resource in the desert to the Fremen. This also pops up relatively quick after tutorial. You feel like a semi-vampire stripping foes of loot and blood after every skirmish. It might seem silly, but this slight twist on survival was actually super engaging and made traversal much more thought-provoking, because direct sunlight is the enemy, and in a barren desert, it is bountiful. Using shade from rocks and sprinting to the next becomes a daily activity, before you get access to faster methods, that is, and nighttime is actually the much more active time as heat isn't a factor. But a factor that never leaves are the worms. I gotta say, when you first boot up the game, the rumbling and the power showcased by these worms as you do basic survival is terrifying. And after plenty of in-game hours, knowing the inner workings of their timings and safe areas, they're still terrifying. Loot can be retrieved upon death, but not by a worm. So this constant fear in the back of your mind as you move around that the worm can take you back to the Stone Age is nerve-wracking. Note, there are safe zones. The worms move around in loose sand, so rock formations are the safe areas, and this is where all bases and encampments will be found. You will see as you enter loose sand territory, the amount of noise you are making is shown, and as a worm heads your way, it's fairly obvious, so running on the sand is ill-advised unless it's a short burst of distance between rocks. As you progress, you get access to faster transportation that allows you to traverse the desert, with upgrades based on preference, making sand travel less risky, but on long treks of desert is still terrifying, especially if one locks in on you as you start. This makes paying attention to their movements a notable part of the experience, tracking their rumblings. If they are busy chasing someone across the map, go for it. But if you see one moving around in your path, it may be more wise to wait a bit. The game realizes that you will be able to outsmart them, and different types of sand terrain are added in these travel zones, with one specifically enhancing noise and fully luring any sandworm immediately in your direction. I've never experienced something like this in a survival game, and this fear of the outdoor world persists even mid-game, which is something that usually falls off after the intro intro in survival games, making this very much a very intriguing tension loop. I think another key factor when discussing a survival game is the combat. The game sets up class systems and skill unlocks at the very beginning. You are semi-locked into those decisions until mid-game, where you can expand to other skill trees from masters. I chose the semi-safe route of having a spawnable sentry turret that auto-locks and annihilates any foe in quick action. This was super OP, but Mark on the other hand had a skill tree that gave him access to a grapple hook. The game, especially early on, is super dependent upon safe traversal, and his ability to get places quick made me somewhat jealous of that freedom. These skill trees also provide combat enhancements for things like gun proficiency or upgrades related to damage. In my opinion, the shooting in this game is in fine to good range. I had no problems with it. If anything, I wanted a little bit more oomph to my weapons, but I was mid-game with standard weapons, so I don't know if this gets better. What is wonky is the melee combat. If you're at all familiar with Dune, you will know that there's a defense option that prevents bullets by slowing the movement of the projectile once it gets into the proximity of its threshold. This is why knives and swords are used, as they can get past this even if they are slow and still cut the foe up. This is a pretty cool system, but in game, it's a bit off. You'll have moments when you're having a shootout with an enemy encampment and you will get bum rushed by these foes, and you will get into an almost comical scene as you run away like a Tom and Jerry cartoon as you scramble to figure out what key binding had your knife slotted into. Then when you're in the melee fight, you need to parry at the right moment and do a slow step to get the completion. I don't hate this system, but in practice, melee fights are terrifying. There are ways around this with specific ammo types that work better for shields, and even my spawnable turret would decimate them, but you need to actively keep that in mind. In total, I think the comments suffice the game and world from a PvE standpoint, but as someone who hasn't touched and only heard small things from PvP, I've heard the melee is weird there. Now, let's speedrun a few notable things. The story is based in an alternate reality to the main canon universe. This is a world where Paul Atreides never existed, but a sister is in his place that, because of her standing as a female in this world of Bene Gesserits, the outcome of Arrakis changes slightly, and we see a slightly different reality that we play through. The game seems rich in lore, and I think the graphics, although probably a generation behind for a single-player game, are great for the MMO landscape for a survival game, and the main story cinematics look great with this context. There are lots of aligning with major factions that tie into this lore, and quests and favorability changes based on how you make choices and decisions in the game. Although classified as an MMO, this game can very much be played solo, and the massive multiplayer aspect seems much more like a community aspect of a lived-in world, which also feels great. But I do hear there's a late-game politics system that can shape how the world works based on favorable guilds in charge, which I think is cool in concept, but I haven't seen it firsthand. The game provides so many progression aspects in regards to base building, tool enhancement, and skills that you've grown accustomed to in other survival games. But I generally love this tiered unlock system and gathering resources to progress, so you won't see any negative views from me on this aspect. My actual only gripe in relation to this game is how many different tools there are and items you would want on your hotbar. There are 8 slots, which seems like a lot, but you'll probably want 1 to 2 ranged weapons there, a melee weapon, your blood retrieval tool, your blood bag to consume, your vehicle spawn tool, vehicle fix tool, mining tool, building tool, and more. I don't know if this gets condensed later, but this is super frustrating because all of these are somewhat worthwhile to have on your hotbar, so you don't constantly have to be in menus rearranging things. I would love if they had a preset tool that I could flip with ease between combat, traversal, and resource/building. If they already have this, I've not found it, and I think it would help a lot. My last note before I wrap this up is this: I have not yet seen what their hook is for longevity. I think where it currently is, there's a great survival game to hop in and experience its lore and very intriguing survival elements. I just don't know what holds you as you finish off researching and hit the pinnacle. I know in games like Rust, it's a cyclical thing where wipes occur, and part of the fun is the rush to be the top of your server, thus holding power in that PvP-centric game. But this game isn't remotely PvP-centric and is largely tied to a storyline, so in an MMO, I'm intrigued to see what late game offers in regards to staying power. In the end, I think Dune Awakening provides an actual fun time with its twists on the survival gameplay with its sun mechanic and sandworms, making the landscape a key feature to surviving in this setting. I think those whom love the lore have a lot to experience in this alternate reality, and I generally think that it's more than just an IP cash grab. Although MMO might be a turnoff to many, it's largely playable as a single-player game within this lived-in world, where PvP is an option, but not even remotely a requirement. I will take a look back at this game again after I hit that endgame, now that I'm playing the full release, release, but from my experience thus far, if you enjoy survival games and have an interest in the setting and the lore, I think Dune Awakening is a good time. Have you tried it out? What did you think? If you want to see more gameplay of the early mid-game, check out the video Mark put up of our proximity mic interactions and fun exploring. Or for a more single-player focused review, check out my super detailed Expedition 33 review that I sunk far too many hours into. Until next time, my name is Easy Break, toodaloo.